And I come to you this weekend with breaking news. We have another Democrat from Texas who's knowingly breaking the law by going across the border into Mexico and training and teaching those to try to come over here illegally. Her name is Veronica Escobar. She's a Democrat out of Texas. Google her, search her, know where she's from, because she is committing terrorist acts against the United States. And that isn't something that I'm making up. When you go to another country and try to encourage those people to come into your country illegally, without proper documentation, without being properly checked for diseases and criminal records, you are committing treason. So with that being said, if you see this Veronica Escobar anywhere, you know what to do to her and her staff. And make sure you've got others with you to help you. She's to be arrested and detained. Not debate, not stand around for 20, 30 minutes debating, getting into pushing and shoving matches. I'm talking about do what you got to do to detain her and arrest her. Because evidently the FBI and the Justice Department and the Texas Rangers aren't going to do it. It's now up to the people to go after these communist, terrorist, democratic liberals. Because the FBI is too candy-assed, and so is the Department of Justice, and evidently so is the Texas Rangers. So it's up to us now, the people of the United States, to enforce the law. Because the grocery store cops, and I do mean grocery store cops with their plastic badges, who are no better than those who work at the grocery stores in their little uniforms, are nothing but a bunch of candy asses. Or they'd be doing something about it. And they're not. So now it's up to us. Let's watch the video.
A shocking new report suggests that Democrat Texas Congresswoman Veronica Escobar is sending her staff, congressional staff, into Mexico to help migrants game the system. According to the Washington Examiner, they're teaching illegal immigrants how to exploit loopholes that would allow them back into the U.S. Here to react is Border Patrol agent and Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council, Hector Garza. Hector, thank you very much for being here and, as always, for your service. So when you hear a report like this that says members of a congresswoman's staff are in Mexico, part of the thing is if they don't know how to speak Spanish, they can't stay in Mexico, so they're training them to pretend like they don't speak Spanish. I mean, this almost doesn't sound real.
It's unbelievable, and it's actually fraud. And the problem is that we have Border Patrol agents on the front lines of this crisis. We have a do-nothing Congress, and then we have this congressional staff going into Mexico, encouraging people to commit fraud with the United States. That's very troublesome, and it's actually undermining the work of our Border Patrol agents. We can't believe that.
So has this policy, this Remain in Mexico policy, has it been helpful for you so that folks that come here claim asylum, they remain in Mexico while their claim is adjudicated? Has that loosened some of the stress for you guys? Is it a good idea? And how much would what they're trying to do here undermine it?
Well, thanks to President Trump, the Remain in Mexico policy is actually working. Last month, we saw about 144,000 apprehensions and inadmissibles on the border. This month, when the numbers come out, you're going to see that number under 100,000. That's a little bit over 30% reduction in apprehensions. And all of that thanks to President Trump and the Remain in Mexico policy. Great difference, and we appreciate that.
Hector, we've reached out to Escobar's office for a statement. We have not heard back yet. We hope they respond. We'd love to have the Congresswoman on tomorrow to explain it. But what could their rationale be? Is there rationale, provided these reports are true, just literally to circumvent the law and commit fraud? I mean, how would they explain this?
There's actually no rationale. The only way you can explain this is that these congressmen, these Democrats, hate President Trump so much that they're willing to go to Mexico and bring these people across to commit fraud. It's unbelievable. They should start concentrating and representing people in their district, not in Mexico. And hopefully the U.S. Attorney's Office can look into this incident and see if there's criminal charges that are pending here. See if this can be investigated and see if somebody can get charged for committing fraud.
One last comment, briefly. The hypocrisy of congresswomen like her and other Democrats who say there's a crisis, concentration camps, yet they won't work with this president to sufficiently fund these institutions so they can deal with the wave.
So there's no surprise here. There's a crisis on the border. We're overwhelmed. We're over capacity. We've been talking about this for months already. When the Democrats were denying that there was a crisis, when they were blaming President Trump, they were in denial. And now all of a sudden they're worried because there's overcrowding. They're worried because they went to a border patrol station where they're saying that there's not enough space. Well, guess what? That's what we've been saying. That's what we've been talking about. As a matter of fact, for example, AOC, she voted no on the supplemental to bring more money so that we can house these people, so we can have additional facilities and additional resources. Yeah. So it's just hypocrisy and it's political posturing. That's all it is.
Well, now they're the ones creating a manufactured crisis that has always been real. Hector Garza, thank you very much for your service and your time.
Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is calling on top Customs and Border Protection officials to be fired over the convention centers and detention centers, I should say, and how they're being handled. The Customs and Border Protection Deputy Commissioner Robert Perez with us right now. Commissioner, very good to have you.
Thanks for having me, Neil.
What do you think of that? Fire them all, I guess yourself included.
Well, Neil, look, it is an absolute privilege and a humbling one to do what I do every day. 26 years later, since day one, it is a privilege to do what I do. And I do it with the utmost integrity, the utmost vigilance as I can. And frankly, the most distinct honor I have is the ability to represent the 60,000 men and women of this agency, our Border Patrol agents, our CBP officers, our plainclothes employees alike, who every day not only exemplify the professionalism that we expect of ourselves, but go above and beyond the call of duty, particularly as they have been during this border crisis.
So, obviously, you're not looking to resign. Has anyone talked to you and said, all right, this doesn't look good? And what's happening at a couple of these facilities, while hardly typical, is hardly something to ignore, you say?
Well, what I will share with you is the same we've been sharing for the last 18 months plus, Neil. We've been sounding these alarm bells. We've been the ones who've been inviting the congressional delegations and their staffers down to our border facilities. We've been the ones up on Capitol Hill through congressional testimony. We've been the ones out here with yourself and your colleagues talking about the border crisis. Look, unquestionably, one of the alarms we've been continually sounding is the oversaturation of our facilities by virtue of a broken immigration system and facilities that were never designed to house this volume of people, particularly vulnerable populations like families and children.
Did you get a chance to explain that, or your people explain that to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who said that it's inexcusable, yet she did not vote on this $4.6 billion measure that would have addressed or stands to address some of these issues?
I'm very confident, Neil, because, again, we've been doing this now. Our agents on the front line, our chiefs, our employees on the front line have been seeing, again, almost weekly or several times a month at the very least, these groups of folks, again, at our at our request at times, and certainly welcoming them, explaining to them the nature of the problem.
And what do they tell you?
What I hope they take away, and what we expect them to take away, is a much more informed perspective of what it is that's going on, the actual factors that contribute.
Alexandria Cortez did not get that. And in fact, she said that your guys, under what should be a best behavior type situation, were anything but. Now, it's her word against your guys and all, but there were these Facebook postings that have since been taken down and hardly indicative of your 50,000 plus men and women that showed disparaging comments made of people at these facilities. Do you think they're looking into this? If it's proven some of them said what they said, did what they did, that they should be fired?
Absolutely, we're looking into it very urgently and diligently, like we would any and every allegation of misconduct, Neil. So very quickly, let me just say again, with emphasis, any allegation of misconduct by any of our employees is thoroughly investigated both by our department's Office of Inspector General
Understood.
and
So
our
you
own
didn't
Office
know,
of Professional Responsibility.
I'm sorry, you did not know these Facebook postings yourself?
Once we were alerted to those, the agency and the department sprung immediately into action to investigate the veracity of what was going on there. And people will be held to account if and when we find that folks were acting inappropriately and not within our standards of conduct. I have to mention, Neil, really quick, again, what we're doing at our facilities, despite the oversaturation, despite the alarm bells that we ourselves have been ringing for the better part of 18 months, we are making sure that everybody's provided fresh water, everybody's provided food. This is systemically provided around the clock to all the people that are in our custody, despite the conditions, and we took it upon ourselves to deploy more medical professionals ever before into these facilities, stand up soft-sided facilities alongside some of our hard-sided ones that were never built for this, and these are the sort of things that we took upon ourselves to make sure that despite the crisis we have upon us, that we were doing everything over and above to take care of those in our custody.
Well, Commissioner, obviously the President agrees with you. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but he had tweeted out not too long ago, our Border Patrol people are not hospital workers, doctors or nurses. The Democrats have bad immigration laws which could easily be fixed. They're the problem. He goes on to say, if you really want to fix the crisis at the border, both humanitarian and otherwise, tell migrants not to come into our country unless they're willing to do so legally. Now, right now we have this deal with Mexico where they would hold migrants in Mexico before they even get to our border. Do you think that will ease kind of the crowding conditions and the jams that you're encountering now?
Absolutely, Neil. So we're encouraged. We still need Mexico to continue to do more. But the unprecedented agreement that we came to with Mexico is beginning to have at least a modest effect in the first few weeks. But make no mistake about it. The long-term fixes here, as the president just stated, just a little while ago, is our fixing of our own legal framework. Again, we've been talking about this for the better part of 18 months. And the fact of the matter is that we need to fix our own immigration laws, not allow alien smuggling organizations to continue to exploit these legal loopholes on the backs of some of the most vulnerable populations in the world, particularly children. We have children who are being used as virtual passports and in times now recycled through a broken immigration system just to facilitate the movement of these migrants. This is the stuff that we absolutely need to fix, Neil.
And you hope this measure and others will alleviate that. But Commissioner, thank you for taking the time.
And of course, this is Chuck Schumer, the other degenerate, scumbag, commie, terrorist, piece of shit of the Democratic Party up in New York. That's right, a Democratic, communist, scumbag, piece of shit, Chuck Schumer. And now you all see why they're wanting to take our guns away. First it's assault weapons, and then it's bullets, and then it's pistols, shotguns, and rifles. Because this is their plan, is to infiltrate and invade the United States with all these third world migrants and third world criminals. Murderers, child molesters, rapists, drug dealers. And they don't want you to be able to defend yourself. They've already got the cops and the FBI and the Department of Justice and the U.S. Marshals Service defenseless. They've become nothing more than grocery store cowboys with a plastic badge. They can't even do their jobs anymore because they too have been turned into candy-assed law enforcement officers, from the FBI to the Justice Department to the U.S. Marshals to the Secret Service to the Texas Rangers to the county sheriffs across the country to local police departments. They're nothing but idiots now. About equivalent to working at a grocery store. Yeah, a sack boy. And they get to wear a plastic badge and a fake gun and ride around in a patrol car acting like they're enforcing the law, trying to screw you out of money for revenue. And for those of you who don't remember the Bundy standoff up there in Nevada. Yeah, well, now we're going to have a standoff here in the United States, in Texas, across other states, and it's going to be across the United States in all counties and cities. I mean, think about it. They made a big deal out of the Bundys up there trying to protect their property that the border the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, tried to take from them. But they'll let these commies up in Portland and Washington, D.C., and all these communist piece of shit scumbag motherfuckers riot and chaos while the Portland police stand down and the Washington, D.C. police stand down. They're letting these punk-ass teenage communists run the police departments and sheriff's departments now, and the state police and the Department of Justice and the FBI. Think about that for a minute. They made a big deal out of this Bundy deal up there in Nevada 3 or 4 years ago. But look what they're doing with these Antifa, punk-ass communists. Letting them get by doing what they're doing, assaulting American citizens. Trying to shut down free speech. Throwing chemicals on people. And what are the cops doing? Standing around like a bunch of grocery store cowboys with plastic badges. Because that's how dumbed down they've become. And I'm talking about the FBI, Department of Justice, U.S. Marshals, state police, county sheriffs, SWAT team. Y'all's nothing but a bunch of candy-ass grocery store cowboys now. Now you're going to be facing us, the American people. Yeah, it's not safe for you now. I'd be careful if I was you, but you do what you want. You think you know so fucking much. Meanwhile, you're letting these Antifa punk-ass teenagers make fools out of you. But you made a big deal out of the Bundys up there in your Bureau of Land Management, trying to take their land away from them. You're making a real ass out of yourselves, all you law enforcement officers out there. Hope you know that. And for those of you who are old enough to remember, let's not forget what happened in the mid-90s up in Ruby Ridge, Idaho with Randy Weaver. Ruby Ridge, Idaho with Randy Weaver. They tried to set him up too with the same shit they did here with this Bundy's. They ended up shooting his wife and kid up there in Ruby Ridge, Idaho, and he didn't even do a damn thing. Yeah, the FBI. I never thought I'd hear the words roll out of my mouth. Me talking down on law enforcement. I'm going to tell you what. They've clearly showed whose side they're on. They're on the communist side, the terrorist side. The FBI, Department of Justice, U.S. Marshals, you county sheriffs, and you state police, and you city police. You're siding with these fucking democratic, communist, Marxist, socialist terrorists is what you're doing. And that's not my opinion. Isn't something I just dreamed up. It's been all over the fucking news the last 5 to 8 years what y'all's doing. Anybody can see it. Anybody can see it. It's all over. Every day. You son bitches ain't good for nothing. The cops that I used to know back in my day in the state police and the FBI, them guys is retired, dead, and gone. This new bunch they got in here are a bunch of candy-ass grocery store cowboy fucking cops. They're stupid. They're ignorant. I never thought I'd hear myself say that, but I've seen it the last 5 to 8 years. Y'all's just plain fucking dumb. And you're going to sit there and let her traffic along with that other guy, that Cory Booker, this weekend over 4th of July. Went down there and brought them illegals across the border. And now you're letting this bitch do it. That's trafficking. They didn't even have the proper paperwork. They didn't check to see if they had criminal backgrounds. They weren't checked for diseases. Oh, and that's okay. But some trucker comes out here and he's 2,000 miles overweight on his fucking rear tandems, and you're out there making a big deal out of it, writing him a fucking ticket. Somebody's riding down the road and their license plates is expired by 2 days. You're making a big fucking deal out of it. But meanwhile, these illegals can come over here, murderers and child molesters, and that's okay. and those Democratic politicians can go down there and cross the border into Mexico and train and teach them and bring them back across on our soil without any background checks, without any checks to see if they got any diseases or scabies or measles. And you fucking cops, you FBI, you U.S. Marshals, you county sheriffs and you city sheriffs, you're sitting on your fucking ass. Sitting on your fucking ass. Well, you asked for this fucking civil war. We're going to give it to you now. It's going to be full bore. So lock and load, people. Let's get ready. Not talk about it. I'm not talking 3 or 4 fucking months from now. I'm talking now. Right now. The war is on. The fucking war is on. Let's get to it. Lock and load and get your shit ready. And stand behind one another. Don't try to be a lone ranger. Don't try to be a lone knight. We must group as many as 40 and 50 and watch your back. And don't get into debates and shoving and matches and debates 15, 20. You ain't there to debate and you're not there to shove. No shoving matches. We're there to push the agenda. Bring back this country, America, and get rid of these termites and cockroaches that have infiltrated and infested your fucking goddamn country. Make America great again. Make America proud again. Let's get rid of these cockroaches and termites, and I don't care who they're with. Get it done. I'll be right in front of you.